What's up, y'all? Anderson here, back for a new story, kind of recent story, but we are talking about Jamaica, the Jamaican Track and Field calendar, and how a bunch of their meets are not going to count, and some meets that have already happened don't count because they are not included on the World Athletics calendar. Now, shout out to the Jamaica Observer. Story is from here. Several top local meets left off World Athletics approved list. So this is actually a story that I did all the way back in January of 2023, I think it was, when these changes came into effect. But this is specifically affecting Jamaica and some of the meets that they've put on already in January, and then also some meets that they have upcoming locally in Jamaica. And some of the top stars actually have been affected. So in the article, it says, quote, performances from nearly half of the track and field meets to be staged in Jamaica during the 2025 season will not be recognized by the global governing body, World Athletics, as the meet organizers had not registered their meets in time for results from these meets to be acknowledged. The Jamaica Observer has been informed. So what they're saying is that some meet organizers for local meets in Jamaica, because they hadn't registered their meets in time to be included as part of World Athletics, their meets are not included on the calendar, which is the end-all be-all when it comes to saying that the results at this meet actually count and can be approved for things such as ranking points, for things such as records, for other things that World Athletics actually does recognize. So in the article, it continues, it says, quote, as a consequence, results from the meets that did not meet the deadline, such as Saturday's Queen's Grace Jackson meet, where high jumper Raymond Richards achieved a meet record and a personal best of 2.31 meters, the second best by a Jamaican man in history and the best in the world so far this year, will not be recognized by World Athletics. That to me is crazy. That to me is crazy. Yes, I understand the logistics, I understand it, but you're talking about Raymond Richards jumped 2.31 meters, and it actually happened, right? Queen's Grace Jackson meet, 2025, January 25th, 2025. He jumped that performance, that 2.31 meter jump in Jamaica, but it doesn't count. Yes, we have the results here, but on the World Athletics site, it does not count. His performance does not show up, right? 2.31 held by the Israeli athlete, right? And then you have 230, but he is nowhere to be found. And if you look at his performances, he has no performances for 2025. They only start in 2024. Why? Because the meet, this Queen's Grace Jackson meet, was not registered in time and not put on the World Athletics calendar. So the results from that meet are not going to count. Who else competed at this meet? Yeah, Sharika Jackson. Sharika Jackson ran the 60-meter dash, opened up her season running a 7.18 performance in the 60-meter dash, just behind Jodianne Williams, who ran 7.15. But this does not count at all. Taking a look at Sharika Jackson, very similar to what we saw for Raymond, her only performances start from 2024. She has nothing for 2025 yet. Why? Because the meet wasn't registered on the World Athletics calendar, and so those results just essentially, quote unquote, do not exist. They never actually happened as it pertains to World Athletics and for their tracking system. This makes it really interesting for athletes, specifically when talking about them competing at meets that aren't part of the World Athletics calendar. And to take a look at World Athletics, this is their calendar and results that they have for any meet that has actually been registered and approved by World Athletics on their specific calendar. As you can see, I filtered it for Jamaica, here in January and February, but you could see Queen's Grace Jackson meet is not on the calendar here. Yes, you did have the Central Hurdles, relays, and field events meet. That's where Kashane Thompson ran that outdoor 6.48. So that performance actually showed up on World Athletics. But we don't see Sharika Jackson. We don't see, Raymond Richards. We don't see all these other athletes who competed at the Queen's Grace Jackson meet because that meet is not on the calendar here. But let's continue on in the article. And here it says, however, according to World Athletics Global Calendar Liaison and Deputy Chairman of the Competitions Commission at the Jamaican Athletics Administrative Association, David Riley, long names, this method was changed in 2022. Riley explained that the application for each meet to be recognized by World Athletics should be accompanied by a €35 fee, adding that the process also included other elements. So he's essentially saying that there's a few things that go into a meet needing to be submitted to be approved for the World Athletics calendar. Continues on here. It says, quote, meet organizers must apply to the JAAA for sanctioning. That requires at least 2 weeks from the event. JAAA sanctioning is different from being listed on the World Athletics Athletics global calendar, says Riley. So there's kind of two things going on here. One, meets in Jamaica, they have to apply to the JAAA to get sanctioned, which occurs at least 2 weeks from when the event occurs. So meets probably did that. Something like the Queen's Grace Jackson meet, they probably applied to the JAAA to get sanctioned. But that's separate and different from actually getting listed on the World Athletics global calendar, which would allow the results from that meet to be listed on World Athletics website. That includes a different process. So it continues on. It says, quote, to be listed on the global calendar, World Athletics requires an application to be submitted 60 days from the date of the event. That application cannot be submitted by the meet organizer, but the JAAA does it on their behalf and is billed for each meet listed. The JAAA requires a written request from the meet organizer 70 days from the date of the event, with the 10 additional days used for the internal process, including invoicing and collection of those fees, Riley further stated. So because the meet itself cannot submit themselves to be on the World Athletics calendar, they need to send it to the JAAA, and the JAAA submitting to World Athletics requires at least 60 days from the event. JAAA, they require 70 days so that they could get 10 days ahead of when it needs to be submitted to do all the processing, to do the invoicing, collection of fees, et cetera, et cetera. So different from that 2 weeks, right? 14 days from when the meet actually occurs for them to get sanctioning from JAAA. They also need to be ready 70 days in advance and submit themselves to JAAA just for them to be listed on the World Athletics calendar. So yes, this is super, super confusing. And I can understand why some of these local meets might not have been, attuned to what is required for them to be listed on the World Athletics calendar. It's a little tricky of a process, but continues on here. It says, checks made by the Jamaica Observer showed that several meet organizers, including the County of Cornwall Athletics Association and Western Relays, were unaware of the adjustments. One meet organizer who asked for anonymity questioned why the JAAA did not use their initiative and submit the list of meets and take the fees out of our affiliation fees. So essentially, meets in Jamaica, they pay these affiliation fees, and what they're saying is that, why didn't you just take it out of it and submit to the World Athletics to be on the calendar? You already know that we're going on, just submit it, right? So I'll be honest, speaking to people who I know work in Jamaica and, hearing from other people as well, there's definitely some tricky things that go on in terms of JAAA, in terms of maybe, sometimes not being on top of, the administration aspects, on top of certain things that are necessary for athletes, for organization, whatever it may be. I definitely hear some things. It's unfortunate because you're talking about literally one of the biggest track and field country in the world when you're talking about, of course, the sprints, but now even more recently talking about the field events, where they low-key had an amazing Olympic Games last year in the field events. For decades, they've been dominating the sprints. And it's unfortunate that the JAAA is not doing right by some of the meets in this case, but also by some athletes, by some others, to make sure that things are in place. But continues on, it says, the JAAA release also said in parts that on February 26, 2019, World Athletics launched its global ranking system in a bid to find an objective way of identifying the top athletes in each event discipline, as well as to compare athletes across the many disciplines. With this system, athletes will score points based on a combination of the results, place, as well as a level of competition in which those results were achieved. So World Athletics, they rolled out the ranking system to be able to give athletes a chance outside of just the performances, outside of just the records or the times and all that stuff, right? They wanted to give athletes a chance to be able to qualify for world championships or for world indoors or whatever it may be, Olympic Games, based on the competition, the points. But in this case, this makes it slightly tough where if you're competing at a meet that is not on the World Athletics calendar, you have zero chance of actually earning any points. Now, doesn't mean you're going to earn some massive points, right? Especially if you're at a local meet, that's not going to be equivalent to competing at a Diamond League or competing at a national championships. But you do still accrue some points. And if you have an amazing performance like Raymond Richards just did, right? Second farthest performance in Jamaican history, the farthest performance in the world in 2025. If that doesn't count, then you're not going to get any points, and that's possibly going to hinder your development throughout the season. But 2022, World Athletics Council voted to approve a rule change in which the governing body would only recognize results of competitions that are achieved in those listed and published in their database referred to as the World Athletics Global Calendar. This became effective on January 1st, 2023, and member federations are required to apply for their local events to be listed in this global calendar in order for the performances achieved by athletes to earn ranking points. Like I said, If your meet is not on the calendar, it's not getting those ranking points. So yes, Romaine Richards, not getting those ranking points. Sharika Jackson, right? She's probably not going to need them, right? She has the qualifying times and all that. But any of those athletes who competed at the Queen's Grace Jackson meet, it's essentially irrelevant in terms of, rankings points or, performances listed on World Athletics. But like the article said, January 1st, 2023 is when this actually came into effect. I actually did a video on this all the way back in January of 2023 because there was a whole bunch of NCAA meets that were not on the World Athletics calendar right after this came into effect. A very similar situation actually played out for a bunch of NCAA meets because they just didn't know. It was something that was passed in December and it was really, really new. But I did a video on this and I was talking about it and how it really did kind of complicate things. But since then, a lot of meets have kind of picked things up and been able to get on the calendar. But we can see that in this case with Jamaica, the JAAA, because of some administration issues or some confusion with the meets and communication, certain meets weren't able to get on the calendar. One thing I also did note is some performances from last year and, of course, even this year, like I said, with Jamaica here. But I noticed that there was another performance that didn't get on the calendar that was actually pretty notable. So it's not like it just affects, athletes at local meets in Jamaica. Remember last year, Noah Lyles, he actually opened up his 2024 season running the 60-meter dash down in Gainesville, Florida at that indoor track. And then he went on to the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix, ran 6.44. Yeah, that meet he ran at was the Florida Collegiate Invitational, January 26, 2024. And he ran 6.63 seconds at this meet, right? 6.63, Noah Lyles, Adidas, et cetera, and actually pull it up on, TFERS where Florida Collegiate Invitational, January 26, 2024, Noah Lyles, Adidas, he ran 6.63. So this was a legit performance. But guess what? Let's take a look at Noah Lyles and his World Athletics profile. 2024, at the top of the year, what happens? He opens up with 6.44. That's obviously not right. I just saw the performance of 6.63. Well, this meet was not on the World Athletics calendar in 2024. And if we could take a look at the calendar, when was that meet? January 26 to 27, 2024. If we take a look at the World Athletics calendar from 2024, you're going to see that this meet literally does not exist. January 26 to 27th, Florida Invitational does not exist. Does not exist. This meet literally did not get on to the World Athletics calendar. It does not exist on this calendar. So that performance from Noah Lyles didn't end up actually quote unquote counting. Despite him running 6.63 before he ran this 6.64, didn't count. So another example, right? And again, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't actually matter for some of these top athletes who are going to already get the qualifying marks, who are already going to be able to, qualify in different meets and going to get ranking points in different capacities. But when you're talking about athletes who might not be able to compete at a Diamond League, who might not be able to compete at a Continental Tour, who might not be able to make a really far mark to get that qualifying standard in the long jump, the triple jump, the discus throw, or some other event, right? They're maybe depending on these ranking points, but because they can't travel, that's going to really hinder their development and their opportunities to actually qualify for a World Championships, for a World Indoors, or for any other major meet that does depend on these rankings. And this doesn't just affect Jamaica, as we spoke about today. There's definitely, athletes in other nations, whether that's African nations, South American nations, Asian nations, where maybe their country actually isn't submitting their meets, the local meets that they're competing at, to World Athletics in time, and their performances are not going to count. These are only some that I was able to find. But I did find this pretty interesting because it's notably affecting Jamaican athletes who are literally some of the best in the world. And we did see with Raymond Richards, his performance, which was the world leader, actually did not count because of the meet not getting registered. So just wanted to highlight this story. Let me know what you think about the meets on the World Athletics calendar not actually getting put on the calendar, specifically in this case, the JAAA. Maybe they dropped the ball or maybe it was someone else's responsibility. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.